This is router 3, and it's the router we're about to add to our network. As you can see, it's scheduled or configured to get its IP address via DHCP, its fast Ethernet 0/0 interface address, that is, and it is also shut down, so we should really do something about that, or DHCP is going to have a heck of a time working. Quick review of where we were at the end of the last video. I've left everything running, so the ports that are trusted are still trusted, untrusted ports still untrusted. We know that router 2, after trusting both of these ports on the board, was able to successfully renew its address. Now we want to take a look at a device that's acquiring an IP address for the first time via DHCP, see if the messages are a little different. I suspect they will be when we run that debug, and also if there's anything different with DHCP snooping between a renewal of an address and an acquisition of an address. So first things first, let's run debug DHCP. We're going to open that interface, and then we're going to stand back because I think we're going to get quite a few messages here. We see the client process started DHCP discover. I will go back through these because I think we're going to have some rows of stuff here. Yeah. And you see the broadcast interface, broadcast on fast Ethernet interface from 0000, because of course right now it doesn't have an address. And it's going to wait 5 seconds and then try the entire thing again. You see the unknown DHCP problem we saw in the last video. And I think we'll see a third attempt here. You see there's no address yet because from 0000. And of course we haven't seen the same packet come back in because the acquisition was very quick in the renewal when everything was up and running. Just one quick thing I wanted to show you here. You can also spot whether an IP address is going to be gotten through DHCP by running show interface. And if you see that, then it will be negotiated. That means it hasn't gotten one. When it gets one, it will appear there normally. So I know you know this, but I'm going to ask you anyway, what's the problem right here? What have I forgotten to do? What might I need to do when putting a new host on this switch, when putting a new router on the switch, when putting anything on here that needs to acquire an IP address via DHCP? I've got to trust the port on the switch that is leading to that host. Because we saw in the last video, it wasn't enough just to trust the port leading to the DHCP server itself. We also had to trust the port that was leading to the device. So we got to find out which port that is, and we can do that a couple ways. We'll show CDP neighbor. Can do it right here, and there switch 1 is found off port 03 on the remote device. And not that I think CDP is lying to us, but I'll run it over here again anyway. And we could have just run it there and said, okay, here's R3, fast 03, that's the one we need to trust. And that will not work. We need 03. IP DHCP snoop trust should do the job. And now let's see what we can see. And we already got the address assigned. It was that fast. And had I shut the interface down, we would have seen it from the beginning. And actually, I'll go ahead and do that while we're here. I'll do a shut, no shut, so you can see it from the whole thing. And you also notice seeking notice of termination, and you can see the address we had received was 10116 by that point. Then we get a message about DHCP stopping, and then we get the usual interface messages about administrative shutdown. So let's do a no shut here. And you can see it when it works properly. There's attempt 2. There's attempt 3. So let's give it a little bit of time since we just reopened the interface. I would bet we'd have to wait until the second batch. You know, we get unknown DHCP problem, but we saw that before in router 2. And then a few seconds later, everything went fine. So we've got 2 going out. 3 going out. And there we go. Patience is indeed a virtue. So you can see we got 10117 this time. But you can see what I'm talking about it being a little bit of an art form. And we get so used to it, things happening immediately. And we open the interface, and this time, since the interface was still opening, DHCP snooping was working on the switch, everything was fine, but we still had to wait until the second address acquisition to be able to get that address, and after attempt number 3. What would have happened then? You'll notice, where was that 5 seconds on the interface? What would have happened after the third attempt if we had not gotten the address by that time is then DHCP would have waited 10 seconds to try it again. Sometimes you have to wait for that batch, but here we didn't have to, because as soon as you see you've received a boot rep packet, then you're in good shape. There's your offer. There's exactly who it came from. Here's the requested IP address, and there's 10117. You're good to go, and there's your acquisition. So as far as DHCP snooping goes, we didn't have to do anything different for an address acquisition, a first-time address acquisition, than we had to do for a renewal. We just have to remember, and it's so easy to forget, but you're not going to forget because you saw all this. When you come back and you add those new devices to that switch, if they're getting addresses via DHCP, you got to trust those ports. There's your address assignment. Now, we are going to next look at a couple of features, dynamic ARP inspection, and perhaps another feature as well that actually depend on the database that DHCP snooping is building while it's doing all this. We're going to take a look at DAI. That's coming up next.